In terms of court involvement, I think to get something that's going to work citywide or metropolitan-wide, you either need a tremendous amount of political will from people in charge or court order. I think the sense that people are going to elect to do these things voluntarily beyond a school by school or a small neighborhood basis is unlikely to take place. And in the time period I studied, one of the reasons it did not become more successful is that there was a rampant lack of political will. So people were unwilling to stick with these things for decades at a time to see them through.
As one of the kids I interviewed from Lincoln Park, he said it's like different species of people. This is a 10th grader who's like, you know, you walk outside and it's like a clash of the species where you see the kids who get on the bus to go to their neighborhood, the ones who walk to the train and go to their different neighborhoods, and then the ones who actually live in the neighborhood. And it's very much marked by not only race but class. And so the sort of connection between the two and that resources have to be attached to whiteness, I think it's really magnified when we think about the sort of public school landscape, and it's not even getting at the sort of private markets of schooling.
The answer then is to just focus on intensive resource commitment to segregated schools, because in some ways that's actually more of what the story of American education policy over the last 50 years has been, right? The view that since we're not actually going to, in many cases, desegregate schools, instead we'll just think in terms of pouring more resources in. That doesn't mean we've ever poured enough resources in. That doesn't mean we know how much full resource equalization would be in the context of kids' very uneven and different needs. But it does mean that we've tried for a long time to say we'll just add more money into segregated city schools.
My suggestion is I tend to think about things in educational settings, so I wonder if there's a way when you go back in the fall to ask a teacher, probably in a social studies class, if there's a way to do a project on the history of your school or the history of the neighborhoods that are feeding into your school. And I suggest that because I'm always reluctant to ask students of color to have to explain to their white peers about sort of the realities of the present. And pop the bubble in that way, but I think one way to pop the bubble, sort of shake people out of their complacency, is to have group concerted efforts to sort of think about how did we get here.
I mean, we've talked a bit about who goes where for school, and so if we really don't have real choices, then it's a false narrative. And so we have the private market, the public market, and all levels of quality within and across these different distinctions, but who's going where? And so once we then, you know, actually give people choice, then perhaps we can talk about equality being achieved. But for now, we don't have choice. People have options, perhaps, and one good option is perhaps, you know, not so great, but they don't know until they figure out what is the expanded universe of choices. And unfortunately, choice goes to those who have higher SES, higher socioeconomic status, and unfortunately it's still attached to whiteness, and so that's going back to racism.